set the polity right. This morning on Eagles Outlook, we'll be looking at a couple of issues. First, top of the list, U.S. group is alleging human rights violations in the case involving the former central bank governor. The former central bank governor, Godwin Emefiele, has been in prison now, at the correctional center for a bit now. The courts have granted him bail to the tune of 300 million naira and two sureties, unlike some who would have properties in Maitama area of the FCT. But seems like the CBN governor hasn't been able to perfect the bail conditions, even though we've heard that there are possibilities that they don't want to perfect the bail conditions because, one, it would make it look like, oh, he has all the money to get himself bailed, and secondly, there's just a possibility that he may be rearrested even after the bail conditions have been met and he's released. So the Conference of Nigerian Intellectuals in the United States has alleged human rights violations in the ongoing trial of the former CBN governor Godwin Emefiele in Nigeria. The group, led by its president, Dr. Phillips Idris, in a statement on Monday, decried the handling of the case against the CBN governor by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. The group described Emefiele's ongoing detention as illegal and fetish. And it continues. Emefiele's standing trial recently, commenced in the High Court, the Federal Capital Territory in Abuja here, with witnesses reporting, witnesses reportedly absolving him of wrongdoing in the award of 1.2 billion naira vehicle supply contract during his tenure in the CBN. Now, tie this to the fact that there's currently a cash crunch that the country is dealing with this, which the CBN is saying or is blaming on. The CBN is blaming this cash crunch on what do you call it now? Large withdrawals. And we're wondering who are these people who are making large withdrawals and making Nigerians go through pain. You go to certain banks now, the banks now, and some of them cannot even give you as much as 20,000 naira if you want to withdraw. Even the POS people are beginning to complain. We're driving closer to the Yuletide, and as we get closer to it, there's a big possibility that Nigerians may have to go back to the sufferings of earlier this year when they had to buy naira, maybe pay 3,000 naira to get 10,000 and stuff like that. Let's hope that doesn't play out, that doesn't happen. Now, we'll also be looking at the situation that happened in Kaduna State where the army mistakenly bombed certain civilians. They said that the death toll in that incident has risen to about 120. The Chief of Defense Staff has apologized to Nigerians. The Chief of Army Staff, as well as the Chief of Defense Staff and the Minister of State for Defense, have visited the community, apologized and begged them for forgiveness and say it was a mistake. They acted on intelligence, but they missed, and it is highly regrettable. The Chief of Defense Staff also promised that they're going to, probe and investigate the matter. They're also going to make sure that, they carry out their activities with all some of these operations with better precision so that they can avoid all of these kinds of civilian casualties that have been witnessed in the last, operation in Kaduna State, Tudunbiri, in Igabi local government area of Kaduna State. It's really an unfortunate incident, but some of the other issues, coming up from this is prosecution and let's say what do you call it now? Consequence management, right? How do we get the people who are responsible for this level of mistake? What should be done? Let's analyze the situation and look at where the investigation should go and how it should go to see that those who are responsible for these levels of mistake, because as it is, Nigerians seem to be losing trust in their military. If these mistakes continue to go on, what does it portray our military as? How would the world look at our military? Would they be seen as professionals who know what they're doing? The Chief of Defense Staff says they're professionals and they know what they're doing. They're well trained and all. But how can a group of people who are professionals and know what they're doing, have these kinds of mistakes reoccurring? About 9 to 10 of these incidents have occurred in the space of 3 years. It doesn't speak well of the Nigerian military. This causing this with me this morning is Kelechi Ogbonna, Esquire. He's a legal practitioner and also a member of the governing board of the Chartered Institute of Project Managers in Nigeria. And by the way, congratulations to you for winning that case in court yesterday. Let's get into the conversation, Mr. Ogbonna. So where do we start now? Let's start with Emefiele. And the travails of Emefiele, as some people would want to say now. This was the same person who a few months ago was in the eye of the news. He was constantly in the news, and people said this man is making Nigerians suffer. He's the one responsible for the sufferings of Nigerians and all of that. Today, some Nigerians seem to be sympathizing with him. What do you make of this whole situation of the whole conversation around, his human rights are being violated, he's been held against the law and all of that? Let's talk about that. Give me the legal perception of what is going on with the former CBN governor.
Okay, you see, the truth about, first of all, good morning, Nigerians. It's wonderful to have you listen as we share our views and reactions and try to get a better society. But it's important also in addressing Emefiele's issue, we ask how he came into that position in 2014. I remember it was then the president, Goodluck Jonathan's regime, that appointed Emefiele into that position as a CBN governor. And afterwards, the Buhari government renewed his appointment. Now, the question is, if I appoint you, is it possible that you would take any action without my permission? Is it possible that you would wake up in the morning and choose which currency to use or which paper to use to print what I told you to print? It's just like you being in an office and the boss steps out. He says, I want you to use the Concro paper to print that letter going to the embassy. Or no, I want you to use the white Concro. Don't use the green Concro. It specifies exactly what you are to do. Emefiele is on appointment. That means he takes instruction from somebody. We are forgetting the people who gave him these instructions. We are not hearing so much about the people who gave him instructions. Rather, we are focusing on the person who received the instructions. And in all fairness to our good government, in all fairness to our people in Nigeria, we are not facing the facts. Who gave the instructions? Who is he receiving instruction from? He's receiving his pay from somebody, and so he's receiving his instruction from somebody. So it will be highly unfair if he is right there in the middle of the storm and nobody is saying anything about where did the instruction drop from heaven. Certainly did not.
People argue to say that Emefiele is a professional. He is the professional. He should have been the one to say, no, sir, this should not work like this. And if the man who is given the instruction says no, then he should have worked out. He should have, maybe resigned the position. But he willingly, decided to go ahead with such instructions, if those instructions were actually given by his boss.
The thing is, we, like I would always say it, we are a very emotional country. Very emotional. I have never seen, I'm yet to see. It's very rare for you to see in Nigeria, in Africa. It's very rare for you to hear a public servant resign. This is happening. This happened under my watch. Okay, so if, for example, a minister or a commissioner comes up and say, under my watch, this happened, and as a result of this happening under my watch, please, I tender my resignation. I think I am not worthy of this position. Nobody Nobody does that. Why? Because it's more or less like they will ask you, is there any other thing you want me to do? Is there any other appointment you will give me if they take this one from me? Please, it is my turn. You know that thing they say, wait for your turn and your time. Man, it rings across the boards in our society. And so people are scared of resigning when they are asked to do the wrong thing. And that is where we find ourselves.
Now, let's talk about this quickly. Speaking of resignation, in other climes, if something like what happened on Sunday in Kaduna had happened, you'd have seen people resign, you'd have seen people being fired, you'd have seen people, going around the place taking absolute responsibility for what has happened and stepping aside for investigations to probably be done and carried out. Let's talk about what has happened with the army, taking responsibility for the drone bombing that killed several civilians on Sunday night. What do you think should have happened in a proper environment?
Well, like I would hold strongly that in other clime, as we know, and it is supposedly meant to be the same thing for us, there are intelligence protocols followed before a drone will make a strike. And if the gathering of intelligence and the relevant security protocols are complied with, it means that the issue of mistake should never arise. Because if, for example, what you're using a sledgehammer to kill is something you would have sent 2-3 trained soldiers to go neutralize, and then you use a sledgehammer on it, with the greatest respect to the security apparatus of the country. But then we have to look at this. Is it really a mistake? Is it really? Especially in the light of the fact that the international law, according to the UN, the international law legal regime says for you to make use of a drone, it has to satisfy certain legal requirements, which has to do with the fact that it will satisfy whether the law governing the use of force, we call it the EU's ad bellum. It has to satisfy the law governing use of force. It has to satisfy the law governing humanitarian law, as it were, and also satisfy the human rights law, international human rights law, international humanitarian law, as well as the law on the use of force. Was that level of force required?